Welcome to this Catholic Bioethics Moment. I'm Dr. Bridget Campion, and I'm talking to Dr. Moira McQueen about decisions of conscience. Moira, what is a decision of conscience?
A decision of conscience is when we are trying to work out whether or not we're able to do a specific action, and we're trying to work out, because we're so concerned about doing the right thing, to know whether or not in fact this is a good act. And in the process of working that out, that's when we're using our conscience in many different ways to look at what is the nature of the act and the circumstances in which we find ourselves. We have to look at our own motivation, all those kinds of things. We talk about that as formation of conscience in a way. But when we're using our conscience properly, that means then that we will end up making a decision either to do something or not. And that's what conscience is for making these decisions.
So there's a sense in which a decision of conscience, it has a bit of weight to it. It's a very serious decision. There's nothing frivolous about a decision of conscience. Is that fair to say?
Oh yes, that's right. So I mean, we make many decisions every day of our lives about what we will eat, what we will wear, all those kinds of things, and they're not moral choices. But you're right, when we're talking about conscience, we're in this area where it really is a moral issue involving this good and bad, which these other decisions don't involve. It's just a matter of choice or preference. But when we're in these areas that really matter to us, as you say, they're weighty matters, and we're sometimes not sure if what we're going to do is right or wrong. And that's again where conscience comes in then to help us to work that out.
So, Moira, I've heard the term inviolability of conscience. What does that mean?
Well, it means that conscience is regarded as such an important faculty or part of who we are that no person should ever be forced to go against his or her conscience. So almost no matter the situation, this of course implies a lot of rationality, that the decision the person has made is rational, is reasonable, because some of us can come to some pretty strange conclusions in the world too. So, but given that we're talking about someone who is regarded making a conscious decision as a weighty matter, has looked at all these different factors and forming his or her conscience, once we come to that level of decision making that we were discussing, that level of moral certainty, then I have to do what my conscience is saying, if you like. I have to follow my conscience. And at that level, that conscience decision is regarded as inviolable. It means that I should never be compelled to do something contrary to what I have decided is good. I mean, a very deep guarantee of human freedom actually is this inviolability of conscience, that this is me. It's not just something in my head or a written statement. It really represents my whole moral stance and therefore really who I am as a person. And just as my person should be inviolable, so should a good conscience decision.
And so what then is the Church teaching on conscientious decision and inviolability of conscience?
Well, the Church really takes the individual conscience extremely seriously. It's a huge part of Catholic teaching, and it's summed up very well in Gaudium et Spes, one of the Second Vatican Council documents, the Church in the Modern World, the Pastoral Constitution of the Church in the Modern World. And in section 16, it says that conscience is the core and the sanctuary of our being. These are amazingly high, supportive words from the Church. To say that something is the core of our being is acknowledging the importance of conscience. It tells us in that section that that's where we're closest to God, that that's where we're listening and open to God, whatever form that takes for all of us who are Catholic, who are looking at conscience decisions in a prayerful and sort of God-surrounded context, because those are very important parts of conscience for us. And so if we're doing that, then the Church is also saying that when we are listening to God and we have made up our minds to the best of our ability again, then that represents who we are. And again, that whole question of we should follow our conscience. We don't know what the consequences will be. Nobody can read the future. But the decision is inviolable in that sense. But certainly the person too, in making that decision, that is a representation of our inner freedom, who I am in the world. It really is not just a right as a legal term, although it is a right too, but it's deeper than that. It really does represent who we are. And as such, as individuals, we really are inviolable, or as I said, should be. It isn't always respected. I think recognising within this idea of it being the core and sanctuary of our being, where we're listening to God, I think that puts it in a very different context that invokes both moral certainty but a certain humility as well.
Thank you very much.